The first time my neighbor ever put her hands on me. She was wearing rubber gloves and standing barefoot in my driveway. She grabbed my arm so hard her nails bit through my cardigan and said, "Emily, don't go in. Just turn around." I almost snapped at her. It had already been the worst Thursday of my life. My fourth-grade son had called me crying from the nurse's office because nobody picked him up from soccer. My husband wouldn't answer his phone. My mother had left me 3 voicemails asking if Luke was going through another phase, because he still hadn't returned her call about Sunday dinner. And when I pulled onto our street 20 minutes before sunset, there was a moving truck in front of my house. A moving truck. I remember laughing once. Just once. Like my brain couldn't accept what my eyes were seeing. Then my neighbor, Denise, crossed the grass in a rush, grabbed my arm, and turned me toward the large front window. That was when I saw my husband. Luke was inside our living room, carrying my father's leather chair, the one Dad left me before he died, and helping another woman direct 2 movers like she owned the place. Not visiting. Not browsing. Commanding. She pointed at the wall where our wedding photos had hung that morning, and Luke nodded like he was taking instructions from his wife. Except I was his wife. Or at least I had been when I left for work that morning. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 39, a high school guidance counselor in Naperville, Illinois, and until that moment I thought my marriage was ordinary in the way stable things usually are. Not perfect. Not thrilling. But solid. 15 years with the same man, 2 kids, a mortgage, a golden retriever who sheds like he's trying to build a second dog. The kind of life that looks boring on social media, and precious the second you realize it might have been fake. "Your daughter's at my house," Denise whispered. Mia came home from dance, saw the truck, and started crying. I took both kids over. They didn't see much. Both kids. My stomach dropped. "Where's Ben?" "He's with her too. Emily." "I'm sorry." Inside my house, Luke laughed at something the woman said. She was blonde, polished, maybe mid-30s, wearing a cream trench coat in my living room like she was walking through a model home she intended to buy. One of the movers came down the stairs carrying a clear plastic bin labeled Christmas. Kids' crafts in my handwriting. I felt something cold move through my chest. Not panic. Not yet. Something sharper. Because nobody hires a truck at 4 in the afternoon, unless they've been planning all day. Maybe all month. Maybe longer. I stepped toward the front door, but Denise tightened her grip. "No," she said. "Listen to me first." There was something in her voice that stopped me faster than the sight through the window had. Denise had lived next door for 7 years. Divorced, retired ICU nurse, the kind of woman who noticed everything but only spoke when it mattered. Her porch was always full of plants and Amazon boxes and blunt opinions. If she looked rattled, there was a reason. "What?" I said. She glanced toward my house, lowered her voice and said, "He's been doing this since noon. And Emily, he told the movers you'd already agreed." For 1 second, the whole world went silent. Agreed? Agreed to what? To my furniture being carried out of my house? To another woman organizing my marriage into labeled boxes? I pulled my phone out and called Luke again. This time I watched through the window as his cell lit up in his pocket. He looked down, muted it without answering, and kept talking. That hurt more than the truck. Because now it was a choice. Denise saw me sway and slipped a folded piece of paper into my hand. "Ben left this at my place when he ran in. Said he found it on your kitchen counter." I opened it. A printed sheet. Temporary occupancy plan. My name. Luke's name. The address of our house. And a sentence that made my mouth go dry. Due to emotional instability in the home environment, Emily Carter has agreed to reside temporarily with her sister, while primary residential continuity remains with the father. I read it twice, then a third time. Emotional instability. I had never seen that paper before in my life. And below it, in a space meant for my signature, was a signature that looked enough like mine to scare me. That was the moment I understood this wasn't an affair getting sloppy. This was an operation. I didn't march inside. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But once you work with teenagers for 16 years, you learn something useful about disasters. The first person to lose control usually loses the story too. So I took a breath and said, "Do you have any cameras?" Denise blinked. Then her whole face changed. Yes. Show me. 10 minutes later, I was sitting at Denise's kitchen table watching my own marriage from 3 different camera angles. At 12:14 p.m., the moving truck arrived. At 12:21, Luke opened our garage and greeted the blonde woman with a hug that was much too familiar for me to explain away. At 12:42, he walked her through the house room by room like a realtor. At 1:07, she handed him a folder. At 1:10, he signed something on the kitchen island. At 1:33, he pointed upstairs to our bedroom. At 2:16, my son Ben got off the bus early from an away game cancellation, saw strangers carrying boxes, froze on the porch, then ran next door to Denise's. At 2:19, Luke came outside, looked up and down the street, and made a phone call with the kind of face people make when a plan goes off script. At 2:27, the blonde woman walked onto our porch and taped a paper to the inside of the glass. A notice. For me. Like I was the intruder. Denise paused the video and said, "There's more." She handed me her phone. A picture she'd taken from her herb garden around 3 o'clock, zoomed and shaky, but clear enough. My husband was kissing the woman in our kitchen, right beside the framed drawing our daughter made for Father's Day. I thought that would be the thing that broke me. It wasn't. The thing that broke me was smaller. At the edge of the photo, on the counter, sat my blue prescription bottle. The one for the anti-anxiety medication my doctor gave me after my father died last winter. Suddenly, emotional instability looked less random. Suddenly it looked built. I called my younger sister, Rachel, who is not a lawyer but should be. She owns a title company, catches fraud for fun, and has the moral warmth of a blowtorch when somebody threatens her family. She answered on the first ring. Why are there missed calls from Ben's school, and why do I suddenly feel like I need bail money? Come to Denise's house, I said, and bring whatever version of you scares men in loafers. She got there in 23 minutes. By then, I had watched enough camera footage to piece together a rough timeline, and every minute made Luke look worse. He hadn't just moved things. He'd removed my office files, boxed my father's watch collection, cleared half my closet, and, this part made Rachel go white, moved the kids' passports into the folder with the occupancy plan. Okay, she said very calmly, which is how I know she was furious. He's either an idiot or he thinks you are. We called a family attorney Rachel knew, Monica Valles. She agreed to FaceTime us immediately. I held the paper up to the camera. Monica's expression hardened before I finished explaining. Do not enter that house alone, she said. Do not confront him without a witness. And Emily, if that signature is forged, he just turned a marriage problem into a legal problem. Rachel leaned closer. What kind of legal problem? The kind that makes judges impatient. That gave me just enough steadiness to stand. We walked over together, me, Rachel, and Denise behind us because apparently my 68-year-old neighbor had decided this was her fight now too. Luke opened the door before I could use my key. For half a second he looked embarrassed, then relieved, like I had finally arrived for the version of the story he'd rehearsed. Emily, he said, lowering his voice in that patronizing way he used when he wanted to sound reasonable in front of other people. I didn't want you coming home to chaos. Then you shouldn't have created it. The blonde woman stepped into view. Up close she looked expensive and angry to be interrupted. Luke, she said. Is this really necessary right now? You are standing in my house. Luke exhaled hard. This is Vanessa. Oh good. I was afraid she was a hallucination caused by my emotional instability. Rachel made a sound that was almost a laugh. Luke ignored her. Emily, we need to be adults about this. The kids shouldn't live in tension anymore. Tension. Such a clean little word for betrayal. What exactly have you told people? I asked. He hesitated. Just enough. That was my answer. Vanessa crossed her arms. Luke told me you've been struggling for months. He said he was trying to make this transition gentle. Transition. Like I was dying and they were moving my flowers. I held up the occupancy paper. Did he also tell you he forged my name? Her face changed. Not guilt. Surprise. Interesting. Luke stepped forward. It's not forged. It was a draft. A draft doesn't use my signature. It was copied from another document for formatting. Even Denise let out a dry, disgusted breath at that one. I looked past him into the house. My wedding album was gone from the bookshelf. My side of the coat closet was empty. But Vanessa's tote bag sat on my entry bench like she expected to stay. How long? I asked. Luke didn't answer. So I asked her. Vanessa looked at him once, then back at me and said, 8 months. 8 months. 8 months of Sunday dinners, joint parent-teacher conferences, laundry, Costco runs, bills, inside jokes, and I'm just tired in bed. I nodded slowly. And when were you planning to tell the children? Luke rubbed his forehead. Emily, please don't make this uglier than it has to be. That sentence saved me. Because once a man has another woman in your house, forges your signature, tries to take your children's passports, and still speaks to you like you are the one making things ugly, you stop hoping he'll come to his senses. You start hoping he keeps talking. Actually, Rachel said, holding up her phone. Could you repeat the part about the copied signature? Luke froze. Denise, God bless her, stepped forward and said, and maybe the part where you told movers she already agreed? I thought that was interesting too. That was the first crack. Not the affair. Not the truck. The realization on Luke's face that the room had moved against him. Vanessa saw it too. She looked from Rachel's raised phone to my face to the half-packed living room around us. Wait, she said slowly. You told me she moved out last month. I turned to her. I slept in this house last night. Silence. Luke's jaw tightened. Vanessa, not now. She ignored him. You said your attorney handled separation paperwork. He is handling it. You said custody was already being discussed. It is being discussed. With who? I said. The fantasy version of me you built? Vanessa took one step back. Then another. And I watched the first flicker of horror crawl over her face. Not because he cheated on me, but because she was realizing he'd lied to her too. That was twist number 1. He hadn't brought a partner into our home. He'd brought an accomplice who didn't know she was an accomplice. The second twist came 15 minutes later. Police arrived. Not because I called them, but because Ben had texted Rachel's husband in a panic from Denise's guest room, and he had called for a civil standby. A female officer took one look at the forged document, the moving crew, my ID with the matching address, and Luke's face when asked basic questions, and said, Sir, nobody is removing this woman from her home today. He tried charm first, then injured husband, then concerned father. When that didn't work, he did something even dumber. He said, check her medication. Everything in me went still. The officer's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. Luke pointed toward the kitchen. She's been unstable since her father passed. I've been documenting it. Documenting it. Rachel whispered. Oh, you dead fool. The officer asked him where the medication was. He said it should be in the kitchen drawer. It wasn't. Because I'd already seen the bottle in Denise's photo. On the counter. Open. And then Denise, who had been silent for almost a full minute, said, Actually, officer, I may have something relevant. She walked to her purse, pulled out a small orange bottle, and placed it on the table. My husband died from a medication mix-up 12 years ago. So when I saw this on Emily's outdoor trash around 2 this afternoon, with pills still inside and a pharmacy label with her name on it, I picked it up because something felt wrong. Luke went pale. The officer picked up the bottle. Why was this in the trash, sir? I have no idea. But he said it too fast. Way too fast. Monica filed emergency motions that night. Not for revenge. For protection. Exclusive possession of the home until a hearing. Temporary restraint on removing marital property. Preservation of financial records. And because Monica missed nothing, a request to review whether Luke had attempted to create a false record of mental incapacity to gain leverage in custody. It turns out people who build fake narratives usually leave real footprints. Credit card charges at a print shop for the forged occupancy packet. Text to a buddy asking if a copied signature on internal family docs was technically fraud. A consultation with a private investigator he never hired because apparently he thought inventing evidence was cheaper. And the cruelest detail of all, an email draft to his mother, never sent, where he wrote, If Emily gets emotional in front of the cops, that helps. That email did something to me. Until then, some tiny broken part of me still wanted an explanation that didn't make him monstrous. Midlife panic. Stupidity. Infatuation. Cowardice. But that line told the truth. He had planned for my pain. He was counting on it. The hearing was 9 days later. I won't pretend I walked in there fearless. I was shaking so hard in the parking lot Rachel had to hold my coffee while I fixed my earrings twice. But anger is useful when it's finally cleaner than grief. Luke came in with his attorney, who looked increasingly unhappy each time Monica introduced another exhibit. Vanessa was there too. Not beside him. 3 rows back. That was twist number 3. The night after the police came, Vanessa had apparently gone through his messages while he was in the shower at whatever hotel men like Luke end up in when their strategy collapses. She found out he had also been seeing someone else for part of the winter, had lied about the timeline of our marriage, and had referred to her in one text as the soft landing. She was not there to support him. She was there because Monica subpoenaed her. And Vanessa testified. Calmly, clearly, thoroughly. She admitted the affair. She admitted she believed Luke was separated. She admitted he'd said I was erratic, volatile, and likely to spiral when confronted. And then, voice shaking for the first time, she admitted he had asked her to be present during the move because a female witness would make it look less aggressive. The judge took off her glasses at that point. That is never a good sign if you are the person lying. Luke still tried. He said he was trying to de-escalate, that he feared I'd overreact, that the paperwork was only preliminary. Then Monica showed the passport folder, then the copied signature, then the email draft, then the camera still of him kissing Vanessa in my kitchen under my child's drawing. And finally, because life occasionally writes better endings than we do, Monica played a short clip from Denise's side camera with audio Luke did not know existed. In it, one mover asked, "You sure your wife's not coming back before 6? And Luke laughed, then said, "By the time she figures it out, it'll already look done." I did not look at him after that. I looked at the judge. And the judge looked at him the way people look at stains. I was granted temporary exclusive possession of the home. The custody arrangement stayed with the children in the house with me. Luke got parenting time, but only after the court-appointed evaluator reviewed the manipulation claims. The judge also referred the forged document issue for further review and warned his attorney, in open court, that any future attempt to weaponize mental health allegations without evidence would be met with consequences. But the part that mattered most happened outside. Luke caught up to me near the courthouse steps. "Emily, wait." I kept walking. "Please. I messed up, okay? I messed up badly." I turned then. Not because I needed closure. Because I wanted to see whether he understood what he had done. He didn't. I could tell immediately. He looked inconvenienced. Exposed. Sorry for himself. Not sorry. "You didn't mess up," I said. "You prepared." He opened his mouth, closed it. "You didn't just cheat on me, Luke. You rehearsed a version of me that would make your betrayal easier to sell." For the first time all day he had no script. Good. I got in Rachel's car and didn't look back. That was 11 months ago. Here's the part people always ask me when they hear the story. Did the marriage end because I saw the affair? No. It ended before that. It ended the moment the man I trusted decided my dignity was an obstacle to manage. The affair was only proof. Ben is doing better now. He still hates moving trucks with a passion I fully support. Mia sleeps with the hallway light on some nights, but fewer than before. We all started therapy. Family therapy for us, individual therapy for me. And eventually the kind of quiet dinner conversations where your children start telling the truth in small pieces. Ben admitted he heard Luke call Vanessa temporary, on the porch that day. Mia said she knew something was wrong months earlier because Dad started acting extra nice in a fake way. Kids always know. Denise still lives next door. I bought her a ridiculous lemon tree for her birthday, and she said it was too much, then cried in my kitchen over coffee. Rachel still answers my calls like she's accepting a mission from the Pentagon. And me? I changed more than my locks. I sold Luke's prized smoker grill to pay the retainer on the forensic accountant Monica recommended. Legally, before anyone gets dramatic. Turns out there were more hidden expenses than hidden lies, and discovering both at once is strangely efficient. I painted our bedroom, took down every photo that made me feel like an extra in my own life, started saying no faster, started believing silence is not the same thing as peace. Last week, Mia asked me if I was sad we weren't a family anymore. I told her the truth. We're still a family, I said. We just stopped pretending that disrespect belongs in it. She nodded like that made sense. Maybe because it does. Maybe because children understand justice before adults complicate it. And sometimes I still think about that moment in the driveway, Denise's hand on my arm, her voice telling me to turn around. For weeks, I thought that was the moment my life fell apart. Now I know better. That was the moment I finally saw it clearly. And seeing it clearly is what saved me.